So I talk a lot about lucid dreaming on this channel, but what does lucid dreaming feel like? If you've never had a lucid dream before, you're probably wondering this, and so today I'm going to answer that question. Hey guys, welcome back to Tipharot. It's me, Matt here, and today I'm talking lucid dreaming and what it feels like. Now if you're wondering why the sound is a bit off and echoey, I explained that in my last video, but in short, I got rid of the old furniture that I was sitting on, the old sofa. I'm going to be replacing it, but right now I'm just sitting on a little kitchen chair, and so there's a lot of empty space in the room and the room is a bit echoey. Anyway, onto the subject of the video itself, I want to talk about what lucid dreaming feels like. So if you've never had a lucid dream, it's kind of one of those things you wonder about, because if you've had regular dreams, you know that those regular dreams are kind of almost like you're daydreaming about something or watching a movie or whatever. It's just this kind of image that you have. You remember this image, and sometimes you get these vivid dreams where it feels like you were there inside it, but a lot of the dreams it's just this kind of movie in your head. Well, what about lucid dreaming? Is lucid dreaming like that? Well, the simple answer is no. Lucid dreaming feels a lot more like if you're really in that place. For example, I have a wall behind me, and if I touch this wall in real life, it feels a certain way. Now, if I was in a lucid dream right now having the same experience, and I touched the wall there, it would feel exactly the same. It would feel exactly as if I'm sitting here for real. So, what are the differences between lucid dreaming and real life? You know, if it's so realistic, is it actually realistic like real life or what? Well, it's very similar to real life. You know, if you touch something, it's going to feel the same way it does in the real world. If you eat something, it will likely taste quite similar to the real thing. You know, people often act like real people, in a lot of ways anyway. And overall, it gives this impression that you're in the real world, which is also why you don't automatically lucid dream for most people, because most people don't realise it's not the real world. You know, they're so focused in on what they're doing, they don't notice the weird, crazy things going on around them, like Godzilla stomping through, you know, the city. But also, it feels real. It doesn't feel like a dream. And this is the same for regular dreams as well. It's just that, you know, because we're not lucid there experiencing them, they sometimes get remembered as being vague like a movie. But in general, lucid dreams are very realistic. But the thing that really differentiates them from waking life is not how realistic they seem. It's more a particular characteristic that all dreams have. So first of all, it helps to remember where dreams come from. Our dreams are created in our subconscious mind. So what's going on in our head affects what's going on in our dreams. Which means that our dreams are not constant like the real world. Now in the real world, the traditional way of perceiving everything is that, you know, this wall is a wall and it's always there. It doesn't matter if, you know, I go to town and come back, the wall is there, you know, unless someone knocks it down or gets rid of it, the wall is there. In a dream, we have a very definite answer to the question, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear the sound, does it make a sound? In a dream, the answer is no, because if you're not there to hear it, it's not happening in a dream. In a dream, the only things that are happening are the things that your mind is creating. So your mind creates the world around you, but you know, 1,000 miles away, where you're not there, nothing is being created. It's only creating the world around you, so it's constantly shifting. You know, as you move away from one area, that area is no longer being created. When you move back, it might be a completely different area. If you look at your desk and the things on it, and then look away and look back, you might find new things appearing on your desk, or the things that were there before completely disappearing. This characteristic of dreams makes it impossible to do certain things. So, you know, I always say that in lucid dream you can do anything that you can imagine, but there are some things that you can't really do. One of those is, for example, reading. If you pick up a book in real life, then all the words are in sequence, and it doesn't matter how many times you open and shut the book, those words are still going to be the same way. Now, if you do that in a dream, every time you look at it, you're going to see different things. Now, it might not even be words, you might just see gibberish or weird hieroglyphs. But if you do see words, they often will be jumbled up and not make any sense, or misspelled and all sorts. So you might look and the whole sentence might not make any sense, or even if you're lucky and the sentence does make sense, the next sentence is probably unrelated to it. And in those few rare cases where, you know, you can read a block of text and it all seems related and it all seems to make sense, all that has to happen is you look away for a moment and look back and it's suddenly completely different. So it's really difficult to do things like reading, but this also gives us all the fantastic abilities that we have in a lucid dream. Because say that we want to make someone appear, that's only possible because of this nature of a dream, this constant, ever-shifting nature. it allows us to, make something appear out of thin air or make something appear around the corner or whatever, because our mind is constantly creating the dream around us. We are constantly creating the reality that we walk around in. So what about how real different things in a dream feel? I talked about, textures. When you touch something it feels real and so on, and that sometimes when you eat food it can taste real. But basically there are varying degrees of how real something will feel, and it relates a lot to your expectations. So for example, I have never fired a gun in my life because I live in Europe and it's not that easy to get a gun here, and I've never fired one. But in dreams I have fought people in lucid dreams. I've had war lucid dreams, and I've enacted video game scenes in lucid dreams and all sorts. And when I actually use a gun in a lucid dream, it feels very unrealistic. There's not really any kickback to it. The sound of the bullets firing isn't really realistic. It almost feels like a video game version of a gun, and that is because that is my experience with guns, and that is kind of what I expect based on that experience. I don't expect to be actually firing a gun. So the experiences that you've had will affect how the lucid dream is. If you've never been on a plane before and you go on a plane in a lucid dream, it's not going to be a very realistic representation of a plane. If you drink alcohol in a dream and you've never drank alcohol before, it's probably going to be nothing like how real alcohol is like. But on the other hand, if you have drank it before and you drink it in a dream, you're probably going to feel like you're drunk. So if you want to experience certain things in a dream and you haven't actually experienced them before in the real world, my suggestion is to research those things as much as possible. So say you want to experience what it's like to be flying on a plane and you've never been in one, then look at documentaries, for example, that show the insides of planes, and look at pictures of the insides of planes. Maybe go to an air museum of some kind and actually walk around the interior so you get familiar with it. Get familiar with how a plane takes off and so on. And then when you actually go to have that experience in a lucid dream, your brain kind of can figure out more or less what it's like, and so it can give you a more accurate representation than the likely very, very inaccurate one that you would get if you didn't do any of that. And related to this, what about the length of a lucid dream? This is a really common question as well. How long do lucid dreams last? And I hear all these people saying like, oh, you can get stuck in a lucid dream forever and all of this, which simply isn't true. I kind of wish it was a possibility, not because I want anyone to get stuck in a lucid dream, but if it was possible, that would also mean that you could have, these super long lucid dreams, which unfortunately isn't possible, at least not with today's technology and so on. Maybe one day they'll make a device that allows us to have, day-long lucid dreams, but right now that's not possible. Basically, you're limited by the length of your REM period. You have your lucid dreams during REM sleep, and an REM period can last anywhere, from like half an hour to like an hour, sometimes a little bit less or a little bit more than that. So realistically, you're not going to have a lucid dream that lasts longer than maybe an hour and a half, something like that. But even then, that's extremely rare, because a full dream often only lasts 20 minutes. It doesn't last the whole REM period usually. Often you go into another dream or you wake up, and that's if you can keep it stable. If you're not good at keeping your dreams stable, they can end very quickly. I've often had problems with this in the past until I started meditating regularly. All of my dreams were very short lasting except for a rare few. So you can have your lucid dreams lasting for 30 seconds or whatever, which obviously isn't very useful. And if you do have a problem with that, I do have a video all about short lucid dreams and what to do to deal with them, which I'll link to up there somewhere. And a question that I'm sure all of you are wondering is, how much fun is it? And it is fantastically fun. Like, one of the things that a lot of people might feel when they hear about how short lucid dreams can be is that, if I'm, limited to a dream probably being 20 minutes or less most of the time, then what am I actually going to do in that time? 20 minutes isn't a long time. If you're working on a project for 20 minutes, you might not get much of it done. But in a lucid dream, that's an entirely different story. So a little bit about how time works in dreams. Now, I seem to recall hearing that there's been a study where people who were dreaming were told to actually make signals every second or so, and people compared this to real time, and they found that it was a 1-to-1 ratio. For every 1 second in a dream was 1 second in the real world, or as close to that as possible. But time in dreams isn't really that simple. You see, time in dreams is something that very much depends on what you're doing. When you're focused in on counting the time, then for obvious reasons it's going to take the same amount of time to pass as in the real world. But what you will notice is that you have these lucid dreams where you go on these crazy long adventures, where you visit foreign countries, where you fly to Mars, where you do all sorts of things, and then you come back and you wake up and you find it's only been 20 minutes. Now, was it that time somehow slowed down in the lucid dream? No, I don't think that's the case. What I think is the case is that when you are not so focused in on the time itself, when you're focused more on the activities you're doing, you can experience what's called time dilation, which is where it seems as if time is going slower, and so it seems as if you're doing more when you might just be doing things for shorter periods of time. So for example, you might travel the whole world, but you might only spend like 30 seconds in each country, but because of the time dilation and because of how much you did over that period of time, it feels like you were there a lot longer, it feels like you were there for hours or whatever. So there is a lot of fun to be had, even though short, 2 or 3 minute dreams can be a lot of fun, especially if you do something like flying. Flying is one of those great things in lucid dreams because you can pretty much do it anywhere, anytime. You can just start flying. And even if you fly for only like 10-20 seconds, it just feels so exhilarating and so much fun. So sometimes when the dream is just not particularly stable to begin with, and I just get this feeling that no matter what I do, it's not going to last particularly long, I will just shoot up into the sky and just fly for as long as I can until the dream ends. Because it's one of the simplest things to do once you learn how to do it. If you don't know how to do it, check out my dream control video up there. But yeah, it's really fun, and there are so many things that you can do in lucid dreams that only take a few minutes, and there are other ones that you can spend longer on. But there are so many possibilities that even after 8 years of lucid dreaming, I'm not even close to touching 1% of the possibilities out there. There are so many different things you can do, and you're never going to get bored of it. So yeah, lucid dreaming is pretty awesome, as you can imagine. If you haven't tried it yet, then I suggest you do, and you should check out my How to Lucid Dream video for beginners. That's basically all you need to do to lucid dream if you're a beginner. Check it out. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. If you want more, remember to subscribe up there. And if you want to keep watching, check out the video that's linked on screen. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care.